Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Top Flight Podcast. I'm your host, Renan. Of course, you can call me H. Now, we're here to talk about the Rodolfo Borrell press conference. We're going to react to what Rodo had to say. Over 2 hours of information that we got coming out of the St. David's Performance Center yesterday, Wednesday, September 3rd. And, of course, some other things that we're going to be talking about here. Of course, international action. You got Jimmy, Danny Pereira, Svatok, Julio Cascante. So many players for Austin FC involved with their international team, with their national team in this break for FIFA World Cup qualifiers, and also a friendly. That's Albania, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Shout out to all the media members that went to the St. David's Performance Center bright and early. 9:30 a.m. is when they were instructed to be there. A lot of good questions were asked. Rodolfo Borrell with some good answers. And I saw a lot of frustrated comments on YouTube, especially some fans saying, hey, when are we going to add subtitles to this so that the English speakers can understand what he's saying in Spanish? And also folks were kind of just throwing out the Claudio Reina name out there or whatnot. So we're going to try to get into all of that. But I want to say that, if you're struggling with the language barrier or whatnot, follow We're Austin TV on Instagram, social media. We always put subtitles on what Rodo has to say in Spanish so that you can understand what he's saying as much as you can, right? If you're a fast reader, you could probably see it. If not, you could pause it. You can go back and you can see what he's saying or whatnot. But no, that's what we're here to do. That's what my mission is here today, to see if I can provide more context to Rodolfo Borrell's answers in Spanish. So let's get into that. Shout out to the folks on Patreon. Shout out to the folks on Discord. I appreciate your support. I told you guys on the chat, I was like, hey, I know this is a late reaction or whatnot. I had something come up yesterday, but we're here today, and let's just jump right into it. Now, of course, you saw the news. Everybody was kind of freaking out when this first came out, right? It was Austin FC Sporting Director Rodolfo Borrell will speak to the media. This was a couple days ago, yesterday, tomorrow morning at the St. David's Performance Center. Alex, We're Austin TV, my G Alex Sanabria, will be there covering it for the platform. I want to send a shout out to my G Alex. It's actually the week that he's off. He told me, he was like, hey, I'm going to be off. And then this came through and he was like, hey, don't worry about it. I'm going to be there. So you just got to love that guy's commitment. Reminds me of Mirto Uzuni a little bit, man. Those guys are committed 100%. But no, Rodolfo Borrell calling this special meeting pretty much. And like I said, shout out to the media members for being there. Over 2 hours of press conference, like I said. Whew, I'm sure some of them were probably hungry towards the end because, man, 2 hours, imagine that. That's a whole soccer game, and maybe even more than that. I wonder if snacks were provided or whatnot. But anyways, we'll just jump right into it. Now, the first clip that I want to talk about here is Rodolfo Borrell's Rodolfo Borrell on the club's expectations that he set out at the beginning of the season and how he thinks Austin FC has performed so far this season. Now, as you can see here, we added in the background the graphic of the table. Of course, new team San Diego FC being in first, Minnesota in second, Vancouver in third, Seattle, the Leagues Cup winner, they're in fourth place, LAFC fifth, Portland in sixth, and Austin in seventh place. So let's play the clip and let's see what Rodo had to say in Spanish on the expectations and how he thinks Austin FC has performed so far this season. I'll translate after.
Primero de todo, que las expectativas del club siempre es quedar lo más alto posible. O sea, las expectativas siempre tienen que ser ganar y ganar el campeonato. Eso en cualquier club del mundo. Y luego a partir de aquí, pues viene a lo que puedes llegar. De acuerdo con la realidad de lo que tienes, comparado a los demás, y de acuerdo con la temporada que estás haciendo. En cuanto a la temporada, creo que es una temporada de momento que está siendo bastante consistente en general, a nivel de resultados, algunos momentos mejores, peores, pero creo que hemos estado más o menos situados en la misma zona durante toda la temporada.
Rodolfo Borrell pretty much saying that to him the season has been pretty consistent, that the team has been situated in the same part of the table throughout the whole season, not too high, not too low. And, like any club in the world, the expectation is to win everything that they can. So we'll hear more from Rodo.
Queda mucho por jugar todavía, partidos muy difíciles y muy importantes para todos los equipos, porque a mí me hace gracia muchas veces cuando se dice que no, que juegas contra que son débiles, o esto que son fáciles. Aquí no hay ningún equipo fácil ni ningún equipo débil.
Rodolfo Borrell here saying that sometimes he gets a little bit of laughter. He finds humor when, maybe folks around the league say, oh, this team is poor. We're going to beat them, right? Or we can go here and beat this team because they're bad. And he just wants people to know that in MLS, there's no easy teams. There's no easy games to play. And I think we've seen that, especially with Austin FC. You think that you're going to go to this team's house because, they're poor, Montreal, and think that you're going to get the 3 points and ends up slapping you right in the face. So maybe Rodolfo Borrell's cooking there, huh?
Estamos hablando de que, por ejemplo, ganamos en el campo de LA Galaxy por primera vez en la historia de este club y me pareció ver que era como contra el Galaxy, porque no sé cuántos. Pues LA Galaxy acaba de quedar terceros en la Leagues Cup por delante de todos los equipos de la Liga Mexicana y la mayoría de equipos de la Liga Americana.
Rodolfo Borrell here saying that the win against the LA Galaxy at their stadium wasn't seen as an accomplishment or maybe seen in a positive light by some fans or maybe some folks in the media. And he just wants to highlight how this is the same LA Galaxy that has finished third in the Leagues Cup, a competition that features both Mexican and American teams. The Galaxy finished third behind the American teams. Seattle won it. Inter Miami got to the final as well. But that they finished ahead of all Mexican teams that participated in the Leagues Cup. So maybe asking for a little bit of respect after beating, yes, at that point, it was one of the worst teams in MLS on the table because of where they're at on the table. But to be honest, guys, I remember when that came around and Austin FC won that match. The Galaxy looked good in that game. The Galaxy looked like a team that was finding their rhythm. They would look like a team that knew what they had to do. They knew what kind of quality they had. And they said, hey, you know what? The first part of the season was whatever it was. We still have an opportunity to make the playoffs or whatnot, number-wise, right? And they knew that they had the Leagues Cup coming up, so they had to prepare for that, get in rhythm for that. And Rodolfo Borrell just kind of asking for a little bit more respect. And I remember that match. The Galaxy was a tough team to beat, although they were dead last at that game, right? But they were not a dead last kind of team. I remember Paintsel was doing some crazy 1-2s, and I was thinking to myself, this is not a last-place team. This is not a last-place team. I'm talking about the LA Galaxy. And you just got to think that maybe Rodolfo Borrell is cooking here. On social media, though, I saw some fans saying, how can this be seen as an accomplishment when they were the last place team? But I go back to what I just said. When you think back on that match, the Galaxy looked like a team that was finding their rhythm, looked like a team that was going from less to more. And you saw what they did in, Leagues Cup or whatnot, finishing third place, just like Rodo said, behind the American teams, but in front of all the Mexican teams that we like to praise, right? So let's see what else Rodo has to say here in Spanish.
Ese es el Galaxy, que hace 4 días ganamos allí y parecía como que eso no es nada, ¿me entiendes? Esta es una liga muy competitiva, muy difícil para todos los equipos y de nuevo, Austin FC, igual que todos los clubes, creo yo, la intención es quedar lo más alto, ganar el campeonato. Ahora lo que no se puede estar es viviendo en Wonderland todo el rato, ¿me entiendes? Entonces a partir de aquí viene de nuevo lo que te digo, la realidad de lo que tienes, la comparativa con lo que tienen los demás, pues todos los demás también hacen cosas y firman jugadores y mejoran a todos los niveles y todo el mundo quiere ganar. Entonces hay una gran dificultad como en todos los países del mundo. A partir de aquí, pues sí, como aquí hay el tema de los playoffs.
Before we get to the playoffs, Rodolfo Borrell is pretty much saying how the goal is to obviously to have Austin FC finish at the top, at the highest that it can. But one cannot live in this world of wonderland, this full optimism. You have to realize what you have to work with, and to keep in mind that Austin isn't the only team that's trying to get better or stronger. Everybody else is making these moves to try to be better themselves, and you're not the only one competing in this league. That's what Rodolfo Borrell is kind of trying to say there. Now he mentions playoffs here.
Que no existen la mayoría de ligas, pues al final el objetivo para todos es al menos meterse en esos playoffs, pero quedando en la posición más alta posible. Pero la ambición y el espíritu tiene que ser el de ganar, ¿no? El de intention to climb the highest mountain and then let's see where you get, ¿no?
All righty. Now, I don't think you need a translation for that last piece there, unless you speak Spanish only. Rodolfo Borrell is saying that la intención es quedarlo más arriba, try to, climb that mountain or whatnot. So that was Rodolfo Borrell on the expectations, right? And I wonder how fans are, kind of taking his full answer, his full quote Because of the no live stream link provided. It was only posted after or whatnot. I feel like maybe a lot of fans haven't seen this presser, or maybe because of the length, they haven't seen it all. 2 hours and 24 minutes. You know, but yeah, that was Rodo Borrell's first answer there to my G Alex, and hopefully you guys enjoyed what he had to say there in Spanish. Do you agree with Rodo? Do you think that the Galaxy game should have been seen as more of an accomplishment because of who they are, who they were last season? They were champions, and what they did in the Leagues Cup. Yes, they were last place, but like I said, when Austin played the Galaxy, I clearly remember thinking, this is not a last place team. They're playing good. They're working their 1-2s, and Vanny didn't have that side unprepared. That side was prepared to play Austin, but like Rodo Borrell said, ATX won, and maybe it should have been seen with a little bit more respect. It's a difficult one. I know fans aren't going to like that, but I think I'm Team Rodo on this one, mate. I think I'm Team Rodo. The Galaxy is just a very confusing team this year because of the insane start that they had this year. Was it 10 games that they lost right off the bat? And then they managed to get third place in Leagues Cup. I mean, that just kind of shows you how at the beginning of this year, that's not who they were. I mean, they won the championship last year. And what they did in the Leagues Cup, they did. So I think I'm Team Rodo on that one. I think the LA Galaxy win should have been seen in maybe a little bit better light. I saw it in good light. I don't know what he's talking about. I respectfully disagree with his point that everybody saw it as a failure, or not as a big accomplishment as he would want it to. But I know people that were saying that was a good win. That was a big win. That they were proud that Austin FC got that dub or whatnot. And the Galaxy, like I said, they were coming from more. They were coming from less to more. Venían de menos a más. So we'll leave it there. Let's go on to the next clip. The next clip that we have here. The next one here is Rodo on the goals scored versus the investment made in the attack. Now, this one was kind of popular. I know a lot of folks definitely, wanted an answer to why things haven't been clicking in the attack. Why after making a significant or a major investment in the front three, the goals haven't really been flowing. And none other than Rodo Borrell to tell us what he thinks. Let's hear it.
Varios aspectos. Siempre al principio tú tienes que entender que hace falta un tiempo para acoplarse con unos a otros. Cuando hay cambio de entrenador, todavía más. Esto en cualquier sitio. Tienen que adaptarse los jugadores entre ellos, los jugadores al entrenador, el entrenador a los jugadores. Todo esto conlleva un tiempo de jugar, de entrenar juntos. Cuanto más tiempo, mejor.
Now, Alex asked him here, what does he think is the reason why the attack just hasn't really clicked? Is it chemistry? Is it a player that's missing in a creative role, so maybe somewhat of a 10? What's the missing link? What's the missing piece for this attack to fully click? And Rolo pretty much saying that it could be many factors. It could be the new coach, new teammates getting used to one another. Many, many factors can contribute to this. So we'll hear what Rodolfo Borrell has to say.
Entonces, esto es un factor. Y el otro factor, pues bueno, al final tú planeas bien claramente y tienes una intención de temporada con una serie de jugadores que entiendes que van a poder ser capaces de hacer una serie de cosas, y luego al final de temporada tienes que analizar si esto ha sucedido o no y buscar soluciones a ello, como en todos los lados. ¿Me explico? Es decir, aquí no hay nadie que tenga la varita mágica de hacer todo perfecto. Se hace
Rolo pretty much saying how nobody has a magic wand to do everything perfect, no Harry Potter stuff here, and how you can set a plan at the beginning of the season, but as the season goes on, you have to see if it worked out. If it didn't work out, I guess maybe he's kind of alluding to the fact that nobody expected BV9 to get injured and kind of mess everything up. Not putting it on you, BV, not putting it on you, BV9, but that injury did kind of throw everything off. Speedy recovery. He seems like he's doing well, but let's hear Rolo finish his quote.
Todo con las mejores intenciones posibles, y a partir de aquí a veces funciona, a veces no funciona, y eso es lo que hay que analizar y lo que hay que intentar de corregir a final de temporada. Pero nada más distinto que en cualquier otro sitio. En cuanto a números, tú mismo estás viendo de la dificultad de esta liga. Yo supongo que tú ves bastantes partidos de esta liga, ¿no? Aquí ha venido un super jugador como Olivier Giroud y ni la ha rascado, chavales. ¿Me entiendes?
All right, let's pause it right there. Rodolfo Borrell, I don't want to say that he's dogging on Giroud, but he kind of did here. He mentions Olivier Giroud arriving to LAFC and how he wasn't able to do anything with that team in California. Giroud is no longer in MLS, and it's right. He absolutely struggled, wasn't able to integrate fully to the LAFC side. I heard some rumors behind the scenes that maybe it was a lot to do with his family. Things were going on, and if I'm not mistaken, I remember somebody tweeting or somebody putting out there that Giroud was his home was burglarized. Have to double check on that. But yeah, I remember seeing that on Twitter. But Rodo Borrell pretty much adding to the answer here that a great striker like Giroud came to MLS, wasn't able to do anything. And it's because a lot of backlines in this league, a lot of defenses are starting to really become physical. They're starting to really become strong. And he says that it's getting harder for everybody to kind of score in MLS. But I'll push back on that here in a bit. Let's see what else he has to say.
Entonces, con todos los respetos, porque ha sido uno de los mejores goleadores y delanteros del mundo. Y viene aquí y no marca. Y como él, muchísimos más.
Talking about Giroud and many more players.
Empecemos a entender que es una liga de gran dificultad, con líneas defensivas muy físicas.
There's the defense quote right there.
Muy bien armados, sobre todo desde el punto de vista físico, en general, en la liga. Y hay mucha dificultad para meter goles, pero para todos los equipos. O sea que no veo nada de... ¿Que me gustaría que marcaran todos más goles? Sí, claro, evidentemente. ¿Que el equipo marcara más goles? También. Pero bueno, también somos uno de los equipos que encaja menos goles. Y tampoco nadie dice nada sobre eso. Solo buscamos siempre por qué, cuando falta esto, esto. Cuando esto, lo otro. Vamos a buscar un poquito un término medio, ¿entiendes?
All right. Now, I respectfully have to disagree with Rodolfo here. I'm not saying I'm smarter than him in this game. He's won championships. I have not. But one thing I can point out is San Diego being at the top of the table. They're the new team, right? They've scored an insane amount of goals, right? They are clicking on offense. Chucky Lozano, Dreyer, the fan base out there is incredible. It really looks like the city has been waiting for that for a long time. And they don't really have trouble scoring goals. You look back at St. Louis, what they were, right, when they came into the league, they came in extremely hot. They were scoring goals. But no two things are the same in MLS. No two things are the same. No two rosters are the same. No two club situations are the same. But when he said that it's getting hard for everybody to score goals, not everybody can score a lot of goals, I have to disagree with that because I see what St. Louis did. I see what San Diego did. And I'm just thinking, well, what's holding back Austin FC from doing that, right? So that's kind of what the question was. Is it a chemistry thing? Is it, a position that's missing, a player that's missing? What's the missing link? Borrello kind of, just alludes to the fact that it's hard for everybody to score. Giroud couldn't do anything here in MLS. And I don't know. I don't really agree. I agree with the Giroud point. I don't agree with the part about, it's getting hard for everybody to score goals. When you got San Diego, Vancouver, you have all these teams in the Western Conference, not even talking about the East, that are getting it done. And I feel like it's not a valid excuse. Now, the next thing that he says is that nobody is talking about the defense that Austin FC has this year. And again, I have to disagree with that, Mr. Rodo Borrell, because I'm sure you have a very busy job, Rodo. I'm sure you roughly pay attention to social media. I doubt you listen to probably any Austin podcast, right? Got a lot of work to do. If you look at the bags in his eyes, you could tell that this guy stays busy. But I do have to respectfully disagree and push back on that comment because on the Discord chat, on the WATV social media page, on our podcast in English and in Spanish, we have praised the defense up and down, side to side, every time that they have performed. Because what does Austin FC have this year, if anything, is a solid back line. It's a solid defense. And we've praised Svatok. We've praised Brendan Heinzak. We've praised Mikel Dessler. We've praised Guilherme Biro, the all-star, more than anything. But Brad Stuver also has a lot to do with that. The defense has kept clean sheets because Stuver has put up, phenomenal saves, phenomenal performances. And I just disagree with Rodo on that. He's a very smart man, but he can't make these statements as if he listens and watches and sees everything that comes out of the Austin FC community, because a lot of folks in this community, especially in the media, have praised this defense because that's the only positive thing consistently the entire year that people have been able to grab and make content out of. The defense from Austin FC has received praise, and I just don't understand where he's coming from with that quote. I don't understand what he meant by that. The defense for Austin FC has been praised. They've had love shown to them. The All Stars for Austin FC was Brad Stuver and Guilherme Biru, two defensive players. I mean, the goalkeeper, if you want to put him in that defensive bucket or whatnot. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, Rodolfo Borrell. And like I said, he probably just doesn't see enough podcasts. He doesn't see enough of them of the content that's put out or whatnot. But he's definitely talking like he does. So I wonder if maybe he's just missing some of those things, or maybe he was just a little heated. But it is true. The defense has been fantastic. The defense has been great. And Austin FC is one of the teams in MLS that has gotten scored on the least this year. So massive praise there to the players at the back. Biru, Heinzike, Svatok, Dessler, Cascante, new center back Georgievich, who hasn't really had much to do with it, but he will soon. And of course, Brad Stuver. Gallagher has put in shifts on defense as well. So shout out to all those defensive lads. I know for a fact we've given these guys praise. I know for a fact we've talked about how good the defense has been for Austin FC. So that's one thing I had to push back on. Sorry about that. Let's keep it moving. A lot more stuff to get into, right? This one is going to be on Coach Nico Estévez. Now, a lot of folks have pushed back on the signing of Nico. A lot of folks have said that he was never the right coach. But the reality is that when you look at the table, he has Austin FC in a position of playoffs right now. He has Austin FC in a position where their defense is good. You see that right there? I'm talking about the defense. He has this Austin FC side in a position where they are fighting for a semifinal in the U.S. Open Cup. A possible final at Q2 Stadium would be absolutely historic, absolutely amazing, and the trophy would be there for the taking. So let's hear what Rodolfo Borrell had to say on Coach Nico Estévez. I know a lot of folks don't really like Coach Nico, but Rodolfo Borrell is very happy with him. So let's see what he had to say.
I think he's done a good job. I think it's never easy when you come as a new coach into a new group of players. Even less when there are changes or players going out and players going out. You don't feel it, but players going in. But again, they have to start working and clicking together with you in between them, etc., etc. I think we had he's been, as you say, pretty consistent on and off the pitch. And in general, I think he's doing pretty well. I think we have coped very well as a team, him included, because we are forgetting very easily that we lost our main DP. I think it's like 8-9 games ago. It looks like, I don't know, like this is, everybody has forgotten that. And I think that this was a key moment for us in terms of losing a player, not only for 1, 2, 3 games, if not that we knew that it was going to be for the rest of the season. I think him has been keep leading the team, and we have been coping very well with that, which is not easy. Some other teams are trying to put...
Say it, Rodo. Come on, man.
It doesn't matter. I prefer not to say this. I think he's been coping very well with that, with the team, and in general, I'm satisfied, and hopefully we can finish the season well.
All righty. Sporting director Rodolfo Borrell there on Nico Estévez. Now, a lot to really unpack here. He mentions how losing Brandon Vasquez was a tough pill to swallow. He mentions how Nico Estévez has done a really good job leading the team. And he also mentions on and off the pitch. And that's one thing I kind of want to start off with that on Coach Nico. We're coming from an era of Josh Wolf where it was evident that he didn't really groove. He didn't really jive with the media. Who knows what the beginning of it was? I mean, we could probably go back and for sure find that answer out, but we don't have time today. But when exactly the rift started with Josh Wolf and the media, you have to go back and kind of verify where exactly it happened. But it was no secret. Josh Wolf didn't really seem comfortable in front of the media. He never really had the smiles or the connection with the fan base that Nico Estévez has, on and off the pitch, like Rodolfo Borrell is saying. And, when we're talking about that on and off the pitch stuff, 100%, I'm with Coach Nico and Rodo, how he's connected with the fans. I mean, he was on our podcast talking to us 15, 20 minutes that he gave us when he first arrived to Austin. Didn't have to do that, but he did. He sat down across from Alex. I was in the room as well. Brian was in the room as well. Very elegant gentleman, whatnot. But that's one part of the game. That's one part of his job. The off the pitch stuff, A+ for Nico Estévez, 100%. Now, when we're talking about the team, when we're talking about his job, what he has done so far, he has been consistent, 100%. He is a coach that has had good defensive teams. He's had success with his defenses before. It's no secret why Austin FC's been excelling in that department. At the beginning of the season, they all mentioned how they were gonna really get they're really going to work on the defense and kind of build from there. And you can see it. You can see 100% the fruits of their labor, one of the least scored on teams this year. But where sometimes I'm not content with Coach Nico Estévez and is in his match managing, his game handling. There's been times where I'm frustrated with some of his substitutions. There's been times where I think that they're late. There's been times where I think that it's maybe the wrong player. But I'm not the coach. I'm analyzing the game to make my own conclusions, to come on here, talk about it or whatnot. But overall, am I happy with Coach Nico as the leader of Austin FC? I am. I am, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nico in. I am Nico in. And how can you not be? Realistically, how can you not be? When you're in a semifinal of the US Open Cup, you're in seventh place with games in hand, right? Going into the playoffs. And on and off the pitch, he's giving you that kind of connection that you've never seen in this club history before. Short history, 100%, but there's things that are happening with Coach Nico that you didn't see under Josh Wolf. Now, can he get better? 100%. Can he make better decisions? 100%. That's everybody in the world. But what I'm saying is, as of right now, September 4th, Thursday, am I happy with Coach Nico and what he's done with Austin FC? I am, ladies and gentlemen. I really, really am. Like I said, we're not champions. We haven't won anything, so you can't be over the moon with him. He has a short contract. Are you going to extend him? I really don't want to do it now. I want to see how the season plays out. But if Austin FC makes the playoffs, if Austin FC makes the final of the U.S. Open Cup, I don't know how this season can be looked back as a failure for Coach Nico Estévez. When Brandon Vasquez goes out, your main DP, just like Rodolfo Borrell said, just messing everything up for you or whatnot. But the fact that he still handled it well, he made changes, right? Rubio came in and started, giving Austin FC a lot of minutes since BV9 went down against San Jose in that Open Cup match. And when ideas ran out with Rubio, switched it up, got a new lineup. Of course, there was players out or whatnot against San Jose in the league gamer, right? But you got to give credit to Coach Nico and what he's done with his staff on the defensive side, and just being able to cope with the absence and the loss of Brandon Vasquez. He didn't pass away, he didn't die or anything, but it was a season-ending injury, and that has to hurt anybody when your main DP goes down. So I just wanted to put that out there. Whew, Coach Nico, you got to pass from me, mate. You got to pass from me. Like I said, Nico in. I'm very curious to see what folks in the comments or folks listening to this think. Are you Nico in or are you Nico out? Let me know. I'm Nico in, and I'll leave it at that. Now, we'll move on to the next clip here. That one was in English, of course. And this one, clip number 4, Rodolfo Borrell on the final stretch of games. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We had to post a 2-part tweet on this because it seemed as if fans were taking Rodolfo Borrell's words out of context, and maybe it was a little bit our fault. We'll own up to it 100%. Alex came out and he said, "Hey, my bad. I'm trying to live tweet these things going on or whatnot." And I did put out a second part tweet to that, answering to this tweeter, right? And pretty much explaining. Actually, I have it here on screen. We have it here. Alex Sanabria put out, my G Alex, he said, Rodolfo Borrell saying, "I appreciate the words from Mirto, but the finals are from day one. It's not good enough if you're only thinking about the end." But also, Alex, later on, he comes out to say, "To be clear, Rodo said he understood what Mirto meant by that and knows the intention behind it. He supports Mirto and the players. He was just referring to the fact that from day one, everyone has to give their all, not just wait until the end of the season." Shout out to Laura Laparce 512. She says, "To be fair, he also said that he understood that Mirto meant well by saying that." So kind of, contributing to what Alex had to say there. So let's play the clip. Let's see what Rodo had to say. And he compares that mindset to the NBA. And before I play this clip, I do want to mention that Rodolfo Borrell said that he was not criticizing Mirto Uzuni in any way, shape, or form. He appreciates his words, but that you have to give your all from match day one. And to be fair, also one last thing, Mirto Uzuni, English isn't his first language, so there's some things that maybe if they're not translating 100% correctly. But like Rodo said, he appreciates Mirto Uzuni's words. He appreciates the mindset, kind of like where he's coming from. It's the right idea. But all Rodo is saying that has to be from match day one. And before I play the clip, that has to be from Man City. That has to be the Man City mindset, because in the EPL, in the Premier League, where he comes from, especially when you were competing against teams like Liverpool, of Jurgen Klopp, of recent years, if you mess up the first 4-5 games, oh my God, the rest of the Premier League is going to be hard for you to make up those points. And I think that's what Rodolfo was kind of alluding to here, right? And he says, well, I'll just play the clip.
Yo no soy muy partidario de esta política y de alguna manera esto se lo he hecho saber a los jugadores desde el principio de temporada y al cuerpo técnico igual.
Rodo says he's not a supporter of this whole push at the end, to secure playoffs. And he said that he communicated that in some shape or form to the coaching staff and to the players at the beginning of the season.
A mí esto de que quedan 10 partidos o 7 partidos y ahora hay que apretar porque es el final, a mí esto no me vale. Esto no me vale. O sea, tú te tienes que ir al máximo desde el partido 1. Porque ¿verdad que son 3 puntos el partido 1? Igual que el 32, ¿no?
I like this, what Rodolfo Borrell said here. I really do like this because it's absolutely true. And I think it has to do a lot with that Man City, mindset, that Man City, kind of just way of winning titles whenever he was over there. And he said that match day 1 is 3 points. How much do you get in match day 32 if you win that game? Do you get 6 or do you get 3? You get 3, right? So pretty much Rodolfo Borrell saying, hey, from day 1 to day X, match day 32, 100% effort has to be given, because it is the exact same points that you earn either in match day 1 or in match day 32. And that's actually facts. That's actually true, right? But we'll hear what else he has to say.
O es que en el 32 te dan 6 puntos. Te dan 3, ¿verdad? Lo mismo. Entonces tú tienes que ir desde el primer partido hasta el último. Y luego a partir de aquí a ver dónde llegas. Eso de que al final de dar el máximo desde el 1. Y entonces al final a ver dónde llegas. Evidentemente que son partidos que se convierten en que todo el mundo, normalmente cuando quedan 10 partidos, empieza a hacer números. Empieza a mirar contra quién me queda, contra quién le queda a mis adversarios, y todo el mundo hipotéticamente empieza a decir, pues creo que aquí puedo ganar, creo que aquí puedo empatar, pero todo esto al final estos son historietas, ¿me entiendes? Porque al final a lo mejor ganas contra el que menos te lo esperas, a lo mejor pierdes contra el que menos te lo esperas, es muy imprevisible, ¿no?
Rodolfo Borrell pretty much saying how, at the end, everybody starts to look at, oh, I can get points here, I can get points there, I can maybe afford to lose this match here, and nothing will happen. But he's not a fan of that. He's not a fan. He wants to treat every game the same and just go out 100% from the very start. More from Rodo.
Lo que hay que dar, de nuevo te lo digo, el máximo en cada partido, y en el tramo final todavía más, no, lo mismo. Hay que dar lo mismo. Yo creo que la exigencia tiene que ser la misma. A mí a veces me enfada, me cabrea un poco si esto no pasa en algún tramo de la temporada. Porque de nuevo hay un poquito esta percepción que es mucho de NBA, ¿no? Por ejemplo, al menos es mi impresión, ¿no? Que los equipos van un poquito, bueno, los primeros partidos, no digo a medio gas, pero no van a tope, y venga, los 10 últimos, pam, 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 pam.
Pause. He's talking about the NBA here, and we can spend a couple of minutes on here real quick. My NBA heads, my NBA homies, how many times have you seen a regular season match and you're like, man, this is fire. Man, this is banging. I know a lot of NBA fans that really just wait for the playoffs, because that's when players go all out. That's when players really kind of just try to earn their money. That's the crunch time of the season. And Rodolfo is saying how maybe that's a little bit of the culture that is in MLS, because, not a lot of places around the world have this system of playoffs. And he sees it in the NBA where, like I said, they take their foot off the gas at the beginning of the year. Playoffs come around and everybody wants to win these games. So, like he said, he's not a fan of this kind of mindset or whatnot, but that he appreciates that the players, are kind of thinking in that way of no room for error, no margin for error, but that he just wants everybody to be like that from day one. Still more from Rodo.
Yo no lo veo así. Yo creo que tiene que ser a tope desde el primero, ¿me entiendes?
Bam,
Para
bam,
luego
bam.
precisamente no llegar al final y tener que depender de que tienes que ganar todos los partidos para meterte en los playoffs.
Saying here how everybody has to be 100% from the beginning so that at the end of the season, you're not worried about, oh, this game, that game, that game. You don't have to worry about closing out a certain way because you did your job at the early stages of the season.
Yes. Again, I appreciate the sentence of Mirto, but the final are from day one. Final is not the last 8 games or the last 7 games. And I get it, and he says it with the best intent. I'm not criticizing him. He's saying it in the right way. But again, this is a league that you need to take as a final every single game if you want to get to the objectives at the end of the season. It is not good enough if you say, no, okay, at the end might not be enough.
Rodolfo Borrell there finishing up his quote, kind of, making sure that folks understand that he's not criticizing Mirto Uzuni, but that, it can't just be at the end because, it gets tough and you don't want to depend on the final results, the last couple of matches, so that you can get into the playoffs. Take care of business early and things might be different there at the end. And on the Mirto Uzuni topic, I'm somebody that goes on spaces and goes on our podcast and defends Mirto Uzuni all the time. Right? Maybe sometimes things don't work out on the pitch, right? Maybe sometimes results don't necessarily go his way, or he misses a shot, or he misplaces a pass, right? How many soccer players don't do that, right? But what I've always been very appreciative of Mirto Uzuni is his commitment to the club, is his work rate, right? When he loses a ball, right? When he's pressuring on defense in the attack, right? When he's trying to, just kind of he's trying to influence the match without the ball at his feet. I always talked about his movement without the ball. He pulls players with him to create space for other players or whatnot. It's more than just about scoring with Mirto Uzuni. I tried to explain myself with the ball movement there or whatnot, but his movement pulls players, frees other guys up, and that all contributes to his position and how he has to play the game. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he does have to score the goals, right? He, especially now with BB9, he's the leader of this team along with Stuver. But like Rodolfo Borrell is saying, he appreciates what Uzuni said, what he is saying about the finals or whatnot, but that all Rodo wants is that it to be like that from match day one. And honestly, I appreciate Mirto Uzuni what he had to say about the finals having no room for error, 7 or 8 finals to go. I mean, it kind of fires up some people in the fan base thinking that the players are seeing every single game like a final. It does fire some people up, and that is some of the right mindset to have, because you want to show people that you're in a position where playoffs are not secured, but you're not giving up any easy points. You're not trying to, and maybe things should have been done differently at the beginning of the season. But like Rodolfo Borrell said, nobody has the magic wand. Nobody knows the future or whatnot. But a lot of good points from both sides. But at the end of the day, it's important to know that he's not coming out. He's not coming out for Mirto Uzuni. He's not criticizing him in any way, shape, or form. It's just he wants everybody to push from the beginning. Man City mindset. I think that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Oof. Now, on social media, this quote really didn't sit right with a lot of fans. I know a lot of folks thought that Rodolfo Borrell was coming after Mirto Uzuni. They were kind of calling out Rodo, saying that, hey, you can't really be saying that to one of your best players, one of your star players or whatnot. But I didn't see all the negativity that folks were saying that were coming out of this or whatnot. And Rodolfo Borrell is a gentleman that speaks to you or speaks to the media in a way where he knows what he's talking about. He's very confident in what he's saying. So it might come across as like, hey, I know more than you, so you need to listen. But in reality, is just like, hey, I'm a guy that's coming from the Premier League, from the EPL, from a historic Man City. The charges, the money spent or whatnot. That's a real conversation, but it's another conversation. And this is a winning mindset. This guy is coming from Barcelona as well, from Liverpool system as well. And he just wants to install this mindset from the beginning, from day one. He wants to make Austin the biggest club in MLS. These are his words. And he just wants that energy from the beginning. He appreciates what Mirto Uzuni said. He's not criticizing him like I said. There shouldn't be any drama within the within the team in the locker room between the sporting director and Mirto Uzuni, because they're both coming from the same place. It's just two different ways of saying it. That's what I think. Now, clip number 5, Rodolfo Borrell on the departure of Nicky Beloko. Now, this one was interesting because I've never really seen anything like this in football. Never really seen anything like this. If there's any cases out there that folks know of, please send it on the DM or drop it in the comments. I'd love to read about it and kind of just educate myself on it. But Nicky Beloko's transfer saga to Austin FC, or his transfer move and then departure to Austin FC, was very, very interesting, and it definitely was a head scratcher. So let's hear what Rodo had to say on Nicky Beloko. He kind of went nice on him. I don't know, but we won't really know exactly what all went down. But Rodo Borrell says that he was very polite. So let's just hear what he has to say.
Is that the player very, very politely and very well came at some point and told us that he understood that he had signed for us and all this kind of stuff, but made us aware of a family situation that just arose. When these things happen, I have to say that you don't always have to be taking into consideration these kind of things. I think you need to look at what is best for the team all the time. But in this particular case, analyzing the depth that we had in the squad, we understood that we could work with him, and I did. So we found a solution, I think a good solution for everybody, and and that's it, nothing else. I have to remind you guys that this is a signing from last January. This is a player that was on a free transfer. If you know the rules, any player who is with 6 months left in their contract, they can sign for another club. So from January the 1st, if you are free on June the 30th. At this moment in time, obviously negotiations with him didn't start in January. Start maybe back in September, October, November. Okay. At the moment that we were negotiating for him, there were plenty of teams that they were looking for him.
Okay.
And actually a couple of them from MLS.
Okay. I heard about that.
At that moment on time, we were looking for different options, but we didn't have options that later on appeared and that we were able to bring. So at that moment on time, it was a no-brainer. It's a player, free transfer, quality to play in MLS, is a no-brainer. And then what happened is that later on, we were able to acquire some other players in those positions, because obviously we needed them more for January than not for the summer. And when comes the summer, appear this personal situation of the player. We look at the depth of the team. We are fully covered. Why not? So we were able to work with the player. I think we find a perfect solution for everybody. So I don't see the strange thing on that. In the end, we were able to get 15% salon on a player that came here on a free transfer. We were able to transfer the international roster lot for 125,000 GAM. The player is happy. We are happy. We have enough depth in the team. I don't see what's the issue.
All right. Rodolfo Borrell on Nicky Beloko. Now, a lot to unpack from this one. The first thing I'll say is Rodolfo Borrell kind of keeping the Austin culture going. I know that Claudio Reina and the previous administration had worked with some players as well. I know that there were some family issues that arose for other players in the past. And Austin FC worked with them, helped them out, whatever they needed to do. One of the things that I can think of very right off the top of my head is the Ruben Gaberson situation. Everybody remembers how important he was to the back line. Everybody remembers what of a great player he was. Top 5 best defenders for Austin FC, definitely in the top 3. I don't know how it can be any lower than that. Sama. Shout out to my G. No, but Rodo Borrell kind of just keeping that Austin culture around, and he mentions how you don't always have to do this, right? You don't always have to, go about the player's way, because Nicky Beloko said he understood that he signed for Austin FC, that a family situation arose. And I'm wondering if maybe it had to do with his wife. We know that he had gotten married, right before he made the move to the United States. Maybe she wasn't granted a visa. And I'm sure any husband, that would drive them mad. I'm sure if that was a family situation, I'm sure that would be, devastating, right? But all we know is that it was personal situation. We don't know exactly what it was. All we know is that, like Rodo said, Austin kept 15% of a possible sell-on clause in the future for Nicky Beloko, and they also were able to sell the international slot for 125,000 in GAM, which apparently to Rodo is very important. Of course, it is very important, but I say it's very important to Rodo because he brought a whole sheet with him of all the teams in MLS and their amounts of GAM and what his team had to work with. He was kind of upset at the number Austin FC had. But no, Rodo Borrell pretty much hinting at all these moves, all this Nicky Beloko stuff was made because the team was in a position where they had depth at the midfield, and they were like, you know what? Why not? We have the depth. We can work with this guy. He found a good solution for everybody, is what Rodolfo Borrell says. And now the rest is history. Best of luck, Nicky Beloko. I still follow him on social media on the Russian TV page, and he seems very excited to be at where he's at. He's back home, and he seems very, very excited to be playing at the Conference League or Europa League level with his new side. So we'll leave it at that with Nicky Beloko. There's some more things that we can get into or whatnot, but like I said, one of the strangest things that I've ever seen in footy was this Nicky Beloko situation. It just wasn't. It was just strange to me. It was just strange, and there was personal reasons involved. So I'm not gonna get into it or anything like that. I don't know exactly what the personal reasons were or are. All I know is that this was one of the most strangest situations in football that I have ever seen. And I'm not going to lie, I wanted to see Nicky Beloko. I wanted to see him on the pitch. I wanted to see what he could do, especially after what Rodo said here that MLS teams were after him. He said that he fit the MLS profile very well. And now I'm left with this taste in my mouth that, man, I wanted to see Nicky Beloko. But all we have left here now is a 50% possible sell on clause and 125,000 in GAM that you sold to the Revolution, the spot that you were not going to use anyways. Interesting stuff there. Now, some more stuff that I wrote down that we don't have clips of exactly, but we can mention other things from the presser is what I have here in my notes. Now, Rodo mentioned this is kind of cool. Rodo Borrell mentions why they didn't bring a forward to replace BV9, and he said because by the time that he would have been available, integrated, contract signed, housing situation settled, in training with the team, friends with the boys, Brandon Vasquez is back. Brandon Vasquez is healthy. Brandon Vasquez is ready to go. So that's the reason why they didn't make a move to sign somebody to replace BV9. He also says that the league doesn't allow you to bring a player on loan that's older than 24 years old. That's something that not a lot of people knew. I didn't know that at all. And he said he was all like, we try to do these things and then rule 1,100, da, 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 da. And I was like, bro, Rodo, you're just another guy, bro. You're just another bro because the rules in MLS, man, they can be frustrating for anybody. I can only imagine, mate. Now we move on to another note here that I had. Rodo and his sheet of GAM, which I mentioned earlier. He goes through all the amounts of GAM that other teams have compared to the little Austin FC had to work with. He says that the team will get there soon. It's a work in progress. You can't just, wake up or he says you can't go to HEB and buy GAM, which is an absolute banger quote. He drops HEB. He knows what's good. He didn't say Walmart. No disrespect to Walmart whatsoever because they're a partner of MLS now. But HEB is just top tier. HEB is just top tier. And another thing that Rodo Borrell said, he was like that one of the reasons why they had to make the Diego Fagundes move, which he says it was very controversial at his time. He was a fan favorite, but that it was a move that had to be done for the GAM. For the GAM. And he also mentions how imagine if he didn't bring in the players that he brought in on free and all that stuff, how the roster would look because the little GAM that they had if those players didn't decide to come to Austin FC, like Mikael Dessler, Alexander Svatok, Brandon Hines, like one of the cheap ones as well, Ilya Sanchez, right? And Rodo Borrell also mentions that they spent 700,000 in GAM to bring in 10 players, Dessler, Svatok, Savovic, Ilya Sanchez, just to name a few. And he's very proud of that. He's very proud of that. And he also goes back and he mentions how everybody can remember that the situation that he inherited when Austin FC hired him was not the best when we're talking about salary caps, when we're talking about financials, when we're talking about contracts. So somewhat he's still kind of saying that he's still in rebuild mode, but not really. He's just kind of just letting people know that the club will get there at one point when they have 1 million, 2 million, maybe 4 million or a couple 100,000 in GAM laying around to make these moves. But maybe some signings have been underwhelming because of the situation, the financial, excuse me, the financial situation that Austin FC has found themselves in the past, and he's trying to fix it. He's trying to rehab it. He's trying to get it to a point where the money is one of the best ones in the whole league. And it's not just like spending pocket money, right? The GAM only comes in certain amounts. The TAM is also hand in hand with the GAM or whatnot. And you kind of just have to sit back and let Rodo cook at this point. I know a lot of folks don't like that statement, don't like that quote or whatnot. But when you think about the players that this gentleman brought in on a free, you really have to appreciate what he did. And one of my favorite parts about this presser, I must say, is when he told Alex, he was like, "You see this? You see my bags? You see this? This is stress. This is no sleep. This is 3 a.m. meetings, 4 a.m. meetings, 5 a.m. meetings, hundreds of hours worth of meetings on Zoom with European size because the time difference is on, it's different, right? They're not matched up. And he just wants people to know that it has been an absolute battle to build this Austin FC side. That's what I've got from him. And some other things that he has mentioned, kind of on the topic is that with the struggle of bringing players into MLS, he says that he also has to compete with, or not compete with, but he has to kind of battle it out. He has to battle it out with agents, because he says that one of the biggest challenges right now is that a lot of players and agents still maybe see this league as a retirement league. They still see this league as, a level underneath where they want to be. Some players have tunnel vision where they want the Premier League, they want the Bundesliga. And for him, one of his major battles is that he's trying to attract players to MLS and tell them that this is not what it used to be 5 or 6 years ago. And another thing that he mentions, which I always talk about, not always, but I've brought it up a bunch of times, is the security in MLS. You don't really see it anywhere around the world. He mentions how there's clubs in Europe that go months without paying some of these players. I remember, what was it? There was a player recently that had an interview, not recently, but a couple years back, with Hercules Gomez, and he was kind of just talking about how he went 3 months without getting paid. I know that in the Mexican League, Salcido, he was very vocal about when he played with Veracruz, I believe it was with Veracruz, how they weren't getting paid for a long time. And this happens all around the world. This happens all around the world. It is a reality of football, but guess where it doesn't happen? In the MLS, job security here, financial security here. And he says that a lot of players are waking up and they're seeing that there's security here in MLS. There's maybe a better way of life than places where they're from. I'm not going to pretend the United States is the best place in the world. There's countries that have a better standard of living, believe it or not. It just is what it is. We got to travel to see all over. But one thing that they don't rival MLS in is the financial aspect of it. The players here are taken care of. There's a player union, right? The best interests of the players are in the MLSPA's mind. And that's not all around the world. And Rodo kind of just mentions how, yes, there's agents pushing back on their clients coming to MLS, but those clients, those players need to realize that the world around them isn't as secure as the MLS is when we're talking about money and getting paid. A lot of stuff coming out from Rodo. And when he grabbed his bags, I was like, Jesus Christ, man, those things are huge. But you could tell, man, those things look like they've been up for hours in meetings, talking to players, agents. We've heard he's had to convince wives and girlfriends to come over here. And he just kind of wants people to know. I mean, remember when he broke down with the Brandon Vasquez, when he introduced Brandon Vasquez to the media, and he said that people don't know what he went through to get this guy to Austin FC. And that was really shocking too. When Rodolfo Borrell showed that much emotion, this is a guy that I say is kind of like a great white shark in the ocean, but he has a laser eye vision. He looks at you and he knows the question and the answer before you ask him. This is a very intelligent man. And I'm not going to pretend that he's perfect and he knows everything, that he's the Lord and Savior of Austin FC, but he definitely adds something to the club, and maybe in recruitment or in that European mindset that maybe Claudio Reyna did not have. And there was a comment saying that the team was better with Claudio Reyna because they went to the Western Conference Final. Did we forget that Reyna left the team hanging when he was fighting Greg Berhalter for his son's playing time at the top of the hotel for the World Cup 2022? I mean, let's not forget that. Let's not forget that. Commitment is everything. Commitment is everything. And the bags under this guy's eyes much like the commitment that Mirto Uzuni has for the club, you just have to appreciate. I'm Rodo in, and I'm Nico in too, 100%. Now, we'll keep moving on here. The MLS Next Pro situation. Now, the last time Rodolfo Borrell spoke was in February. Some of the same kind of things were brought up. He was very frustrated with Alex asking him about the investment early in the press conference. He said he was like, I'm tired of hearing 30 million because we all went to school. We all went to school. We know that 30 minus 10 is 20. We spent 30 on BV, Uzuni, and Bukari, but don't forget that the team sold Sebastian Drusi for 10 million as well. So make sure to subtract that every time you mention 30 million. I was like, yo, Rodo, calm down, man. Por favor, calm down, because numbers don't lie. 30 is still 30. Whether you sell a guy for 20, for 10 or whatnot, it's still 30. It's still 30 million, but 27 if you want to be absolutely technical. Now, Rodo talks about the MLS Next Pro, much like he did in February, and he kind of just didn't have a different answer. You know, I know a lot of folks, I include myself in that group. We want to see a pipeline from the academy to Austin FC2 to the first team. But the reality is that it is just not happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. And Rodolfo Borrell says is that the level is just marginally different. There's levels to this ish, is what Rodolfo Borrell is pretty much trying to say. And not to disrespect any of Cito players, not to disrespect their journey at all, because there are players that are training with Austin FC. Nico Estévez himself said that he's monitoring 5 of those Austin FC2 players. I'm sure it is to maybe help the team when it is needed, either with those call-ups or whatnot. Now, if I could guess who those 5 players are, I would think it's Micah Burton, Irvin Torres, Jorge Alastue, Antonio Gomez, and the 5th one could, if it's either CJ Fodry, if you want to count him, or Jimmy Farkarlun, if you want to count him, because they have those first team contracts or whatnot. But they're training with the first team, right? In case they ever need the help or whatnot. But Rodo says is that you just can't bring them up if they're not ready. You just can't bring them up if the level is not there yet. And of course, the question is, the debate, maybe the debate topic that's there is that, well, why not bring up any of the guys that were champions with Austin FC2, right, that year that they won the MLS Next Pro? And Rodo Borrell just kind of clapped back and he said, well, if they're so good, how come no other MLS team wanted them? Little bit of a mic drop there. When we think about players that have came through this system, automatically I think of David Rodriguez, who's been killing it in the league where he's at. He's in the Canadian League, constant player of the week, always in the match day 11s, right? Always in the team of the week 11s. You also have Alonso Ramirez, who is a player for Atlas. Now, he's not a consistent starter. He does get minutes, but he doesn't get an insane amount of minutes. We got to be real. Valentin Noel, Rodo Borrell mentions how he was extremely talented, all this and that. But, we also have to remember that the international spot was not there to use it on him. And he went to the USL, and he's kind of been in the USL since then. Now, kind of going to the point where if Valentin Noel was truly that phenomenal, truly that talented for MLS, how come he hasn't made it into some other team, right? Some other team that maybe is desperate for a young signing, some other team that maybe wants new blood in their roster. So Rodo Borrell just kind of clearing things up between the level of Austin FC and Austin FC2. And me, myself, I've been to a lot of Austin FC2 games. Some of the times they are very low scoring. A lot of the times, they're not something to keep you on the edge of your seats. But you also got to think back that the MLS Next Pro is not a league of spectacle. It's not a league of, we have to win this game every single week. It's more of a development league. It's more about, how you can develop these young guys, to hopefully make it into the first team, or like what we've seen in the academy. A lot of those kids are going to college. They're getting playing time in some great schools, right? They're joining those teams. Wyatt Harding, Gio Reyna's brother, Joa Reyna, Sean Albright, just to name a few players that have gone from either the academy or working with FCito in early stages to, just going to college. And that's a pathway here in this country, right? That's a pathway. John Gallagher went through the draft, right? He left his home in Europe, went through the draft or whatnot, tried to find his way here, got drafted by Atlanta. Now he's a legend for Austin FC. Now, like I said, there's different pathways, and kind of Rodo Borrell just, I wouldn't say dissing, no, not at all, but he's just kind of pointing out that the difference of the two levels is just too big right now to really trust an Austin FC2 player from coming up and helping the team. Now, a couple podcasts ago, I mentioned the Montreal when I mentioned how Olger Escobar from Montreal was an MLS Next Pro player, and he cooked Austin FC um, away from home. And if there's one guy from the Austin FC2 roster that I would bring up to help this team in the creative department, in the goal department, it's just one guy right now, and it's Jorge Alastue. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's a really good player, and I'm wondering what the future holds for him. I'd hate to see him walk. I'd hate to see him go, much like Vigo Ortiz, Nico Van Rij, just to name a few. I mean, there's players that have dropped out of Austin FC2 or the academy because they see that there's no opportunity there. But hopefully that has ended, and hopefully we can really get a pipeline going here in the near future. But no disrespect to MLS Next Pro and Austin FC2, Rodolfo Borrell, just pointing out that the level is it's nowhere near right now. So we'll see. Players are training with the first team, and hopefully here in the future, maybe we have a different situation where we have that pipeline from the academy to Austin FC2 to the first team. It's just Rodolfo Borrell says right now is that it's just nowhere near, and nobody's ready. I guess just players training with the team, and they just need more time, more time. More time is what we all need, huh? More time is what we all need. Now, a lot more stuff was said in this press conference, ladies and gentlemen. Those are just 5 clips and some stuff that I wrote down here in my notes that really got my attention, that I wanted to share on this reaction podcast, to what Rodolfo Borrell had to say. At the end of the day, I'm Nico in. At the end of the day, I'm Rodo in. At the end of the day, I'm win your games, win the last couple of games, win the 7, 8, treat them like a final. I don't care, but just get the job done. Get the job done, no matter how it is that you accomplish it. But like Mirto Uzuni said, and I wonder if Rodo pushes back on this, Mirto Uzuni said that the fan base and the city deserve the playoffs, that's coming up from the high up, that this team needs to be in the playoffs, right? They need to be in the postseason, right? They need to be in the second part of the season, which is the playoffs. And with the U.S. Open Cup there, it's there for the taking. Why not go for it? I don't think you can push back on that, Mr. Rodolfo Borrell. Some things that I did agree with him 100%, but like I mentioned, there's a lot of things that I also disagree with him in particular, and especially the part where he said that nobody talks about how good the defense is, and that's just not true. That is absolutely false. Listens to our podcast. You can just look through our page on Instagram or whatnot. You can see there's been a lot of praise for the defense. When they truly deserve it. Not like the game in Montreal where Mikael Dessler sticks his hand up like a schoolboy, penalty. Montreal's counterattack completely exposes the pressing Guilherme Biru, where he went too far up, right? He makes a bad call and went to stab into the bar or whatnot. Just defensive collapse in Montreal. But that's not all the time. Overall, this team is good on defense, and that's one thing that we've always praised, and that's kind of the main thing that I push back on Rodolfo Borrell in this press conference. If he's going to talk like he sees everything and knows everything that everybody says and does and posts and writes, you got to be up to date with everything that everybody posts and says and writes. And that's just my take on that. I'm a center back. I played CB, and I've always given praise to this defense. Alex has always given praise to this defense. Diego Valencia, Ozzy, whenever we have the mic in our face and we can talk good about this defense, we do. So I'll just leave it at that. That's the part that frustrated me the most. If you haven't heard it yet, go on YouTube, listen to the press conference, come up with your own opinions, come up with your own conclusions. Let me know if you are Rodo in. Let me know if you are Nico in or out. But how can you be maybe unhappy right now when your team is in a playoff position with games in hand and you're fighting in a semifinal for the U.S. Open Cup? That's just the reality, and like Rodo said, folks like to pick things apart, to talk about this here and there or whatnot. And maybe that is true, right? Maybe the media sometimes just likes to find any little thing to create a story or to create a graphic or a quote that can be taken out of context or whatnot. But that doesn't happen a lot here in Austin. That does not happen a lot here in Austin. And I just wanted to put that out there. Nico in, Rodo in. That's coming from me. I'd love to know what you think about this press conference. I know a lot of folks are saying that it was unnecessary, but for me, I thought it was great. A lot of information came out. I pushed back on some of the stuff, but I agree with a lot of what Rodolfo Borrell had to say. This is a guy that sees the team in black and white, sees the team with no bias whatsoever. And what I really like that he said is that he wants to take Austin FC to the top. He wants to make them the best team, the biggest team in MLS. But man, that is going to be a feat. That's going to be quite the task. Now, let's get into some of the international call-ups. Right, we had some of our guys involved with their national team. We had Uzuni in a friendly with Albania. He did not feature though. You'd think that it's maybe a precautionary move. They want to save him for the World Cup qualifier because it's not that he's carrying an injury. No, he was questionable for his quad against San Jose, and he still played. He gave you 64 minutes. He scored a goal, and he was great in the attack for Austin FC. Finally celebrated his goal, but he did not play against Gibraltar. But you'd think that he's playing in the World Cup qualifier against Latvia. I believe that's on Tuesday, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. We'll be posting any updates if he makes it the starting 11, if he scores a goal, if he farts. We'll be posting something on Mirtu Uzuni. Shout out to my G, one of the hardest workers for Austin FC. No complaints on this guy. Not criticizing, like Rodolfo Borrell said, whatsoever. I appreciate this guy so much, what he does for the club, and hopefully one day this team can lift a trophy with him in this roster. But right now he's with the national team. He's with Albania. And I'm sure that he's enjoying his time out there. He'll be back soon, and we'll go from there. Good luck against Latvia. World Cup qualifier. It's not going to be easy. Albania isn't a powerhouse whatsoever, but we'll see how it goes for them. Dani Pereira, huge World Cup qualifier against Argentina and Colombia. However, that game against Argentina just ended a couple hours ago, and unfortunately, Venezuela got battered 3-0. Messi with 2 goals, if I'm not mistaken. Lautaro Martinez came in at the 70th and scored like 4 or 5 minutes later. But it's not over for Venezuela and Dani Pereira. Now, these are some of the most interesting World Cup qualifiers I've seen in CONMEBOL in a while. I have a quote here from a website that I'll read here in a little bit, but I just want to point out that Venezuela will most likely, I can't say most likely because they've been inconsistent. They will probably get in that playoff spot for CONMEBOL, and it's not over. It's not over, Venezuela. The World Cup dream is not dead. It is still alive, and you just have to hang in there. You got to hang in there, guys. Now, I'll read the quote here. This is from Caracas Chronicles, if I'm not mistaken. It says, instead of gaining direct access, Venezuela would have to play a round consisting of other nations from North America, Africa, Oceania, and Asia in order to then be one of the 2 last teams qualified to the jointly organized 2026 World Cup. Kind of reminds me of when Mexico had to play New Zealand and they beat them like 7-1 to get into the World Cup. That was some of the most stressful times in my life as a Mexican national team supporter. We were down bad, down atrociously bad, and somehow, some way, shape, or form, El Piojo Lopez took this team from El Chepo de la Torre, beat New Zealand 7-1, and the rest is history. Thank you to Raul Jimenez. Oh my God, that campaign was so stressful. But anyways, back to the article. No matter how you look at it, this is second serves, and it is a consequence of a terrible way of approaching the World Cup qualifiers. 6 of 10 South Americans will go through, and Venezuela will be left with the job of making sure CONMEBOL adds a 7th berth to the final tally of qualified countries for the first time in history. Now, here it says previously CONMEBOL accounted for 4 direct berths, and a 5th could make it via a doubleheader playoff against a team in a similar condition from North America or Oceania, depending on the World Cup in question. Very critical of their national team, Venezuela, but it is what it is. They also mentioned in the article that this was one of the most easiest campaigns for Venezuela, and some way, somehow, they've absolutely botched it. I remember a couple months ago, Venezuela was flying high. I know people were praising Bocha Batista, saying that he was going to be the guy to lead them to the World Cup. Salomon Rondon was on a whole other level. He's a great player, but he can't do everything by himself. And, maybe it was the fact that maybe some players were missing in this Venezuela side. Our very own Dani Pereira did not get any minutes in this game, unfortunately, but in his point of view, unfortunate. In an Austin FC fan point of view, it would be great to see him come off the bench. You know that there was no injury because he did not play. So that's something going for Austin FC fans. But from a Dani Pereira point of view, he definitely wanted to play this game. I know Messi is probably one of his biggest idols in football next to Iniesta and Xavi. I believe he had mentioned that publicly before. But who doesn't want to play against Lionel Messi? And it's such a historic game. It was the last game for Leo Messi at home for Argentina. So that was probably magical. The atmosphere must have been insane. I saw a lot of photos of players crying. His family was there with him or whatnot. But Danny didn't play. They're still live for Venezuela, and now they have to play Colombia. Colombia, Tuesday, September 9th, who, by the way, Colombia is already qualified for the World Cup. They took care of business, and they are already in the big party, ready to just kind of dance it out here in North America, Canada, and Mexico for the 2026 World Cup. Full schedule here. We talked about Mirto Uzuni. We talked about Danny Pereira, Jimmy Farkarlun with Tunisia. Jimmy Farkarlun with Liberia. They lost against Tunisia today, 3-0. Jimmy did start. Jimmy time got 46 minutes. He was subbed off kind of early for my liking, but you see him there on screen, number 21, subbed off. And you just have to feel for the lad. You know, he wants to play. He wants to contribute for his national team. He does well for Austin FC too, although I need more from him for Austin FC too, because he's an international player for a serious country like Liberia, who has produced Ballon d'Or winner George Weah before. I feel like Jimmy just has to do a little bit more, man. I'm not like Rodo says, I'm not criticizing the player, but I want more from him. I know he's a very talented player. He's a pacey winger, and I think there's a player in there that we haven't seen yet. He hasn't unlocked it yet. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a term of youth, a term of maybe a matter of maturity or whatnot, but he has the quality. He has the speed, right? He has that factor where he can change a game for you like that. But there's something missing from Jimmy time that hasn't really developed for Austin FC2, hasn't really gone his way for him to make it to the first team. And when you're subbed off at the 46th minute for your national team in a World Cup qualifier against Tunisia, when you're losing the match, just gutted feeling. And it's not the end of the road for Jimmy, not the end of the road at all, right? They do have another game. We have here on screen. They play Malawi Monday, September 8th at 11 a.m. CT. So you can go ahead and check that out for yourself. Jimmy time, best of luck, mate. Hopefully everything works out for you and the Liberian national team. We'll see you here in Austin FC, Austin FC2, when the next pro games come around to the St. David's Performance Center and Palmer Field. Now, Alexander Svatok, Ukraine versus France, Friday, September 5th at 1:45 p.m. CT. Who's ready to see Svatok lock down Mbappe and all the other lads from France? He did it against Belgium, the Euros, so we'll see just what happens there. And then they play Azerbaijan Tuesday, September 9th at 11 a.m. Central Time as well. Both World Cup qualifiers, two very important games for Alexander Svatok and his national team, his country. So best of luck to the Austin FC center back. And then you have Julio Cascante. Costa Rica plays Nicaragua Friday, September 5th at 9 p.m. CT. And then they play Haiti Tuesday, September 5th at 9 p.m. September 9th at 9 p.m. CT. That is a World Cup qualifier as well. Now, I'm not trying to, hate on anybody. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, but the Julio Cascante call-up was a little bit of a head scratcher for me because he didn't have any minutes. He wasn't playing for Austin FC. And Ozzy, he said he was like, I wonder how bad the situation and defense has to be for Costa Rica to call up Julio Cascante. Not because of quality, right? I'm a guy that has defended Julio Cascante in front of the masses for quite some time now. But the reality is that he's fallen out of favor with Coach Nico. He's one of the highest paid players for Austin FC, and things just haven't worked out for him this year. To me, the best version of Julio Cascante was next to Ruben Gabrielson. Ever since his departure, Cascante has not been at that level, and it hurts because he's an important team. He's an important player for this team. He's one of the OGs, right? I know a lot of people like him. I know a lot of people think he's a good guy, a great guy. But at the end of the day, he's a player for Austin FC, and that's what he's going to be judged by Coach Nico, by Rodolfo Borrell. And he doesn't have any minutes, like I said. He's fallen out of favor with the coaching staff. And it puts Austin in a very difficult position because you don't have Svatok, you don't have Julio Cascante. You're going to have to rely on maybe Guilherme Biro to slot in a center back position against SKC. That game is coming up on Sunday. Or you're going to have to gamble and give Djordjevic his first run of minutes when he hasn't played a game in 2 months. So it's difficult. It's difficult. The player is not going to deny this call-up because he hasn't got his minutes with the club. He's hoping to get minutes with his national team, right? He's not going to deny this call-up. So we'll see what happens with Costa Rica and Julio Cascante. I wish him the very best. I wish Costa Rica the very, very, very best. They're a CONCACAF team. They have Keylor Navas, one of my favorite players in Real Madrid history, the best goalkeeper in CONCACAF history. I say that with my chest out. I say that 10 toes on the ground. He's better than Guillermo Ochoa, 100%. We'll leave it there. But like I said, a lot of respect for Costa Rica, a lot of respect for Julio Cascante. But the reality is that the call up was a head scratcher, and it leaves Austin FC in a very difficult position because now you're in a little bit of a center back mini crisis because you have a guy who hasn't played in 2 months. You have a left back that could probably slot in at center back, but then you have to bring down Johnny G. Or you can call up Antonio Gomez, who I believe maybe has one or two call ups left. And we'll see what happens there. There was a photo today that was posted by the club of Djordjevic and Antonio Gomez in training. So we'll see what kind of lineup we get against Sporting Kansas City in Kansas City on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes' team. We'll see what happens there. We will see what happens there. Now, those are all the international call-ups. Schedule here for September is on screen. Tomorrow, when this podcast is out, right? Well, when you're listening to this, Austin FC 2 will face Minnesota 2 away from home. The players are already traveling. Jorge Alastue is on the plane with them. Shout out to my RG Gloss. And you have the game against Sporting Kansas City away from home Sunday, September 7th, like I mentioned. Then you have Fcito playing the Tacoma Defiance on the 12th away from home. That's Seattle's team. Austin FC, the first team, travels to Dallas to play a game away from home there. Then the Open Cup match, the historic Open Cup match, with which I will be there along with Dante Valencia. Shout out to my G. September 17th away from home. Got to be there. I've always wanted to visit that stadium, but I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit nervous because of the shooting that just took place there. So hopefully nothing happens. I'm sure everything is neutralized now or whatnot, but definitely is in the back of my mind. And then Fcito comes back at home against St. Louis 2. That is September 19th. We'll see what happens there. And then Austin FC, the first team, finally returns home September 21st against Seattle. What a team to face after they just won the Leagues Cup with all the drama that went down. Fcito, back-to-back home games. This one against Portland Timbers 2, the 26th of September. That's a Friday as well. Austin FC has the first team travels to Ross Salt Lake away from home. And oof, what a month, y'all. What a month. I'm out of breath just talking about it because there's only one home game for the first team the entire month of September. Can you believe it? That's tough, man. That's absolutely tough. But I will say that if anything, along with the great defense, you see there, Rodo, I'm talking about it. Austin FC has been a good road team. They've been a good road team. They know how to take care of business away from home. Nico says that, it's kind of a coincidence that they've gotten better results away from home than at home. They die to give the fans results at home. They're eager to give the fans results at home. But the reality is that they've been more successful kind of outside of Q2. So am I scared? Am I worried about this schedule coming up? So many games away from home? No, not really. Not when you have the guys talking about 7 finals left. Even though Rodolfo Borrell is kind of, not a fan of that whole ideology or that whole mindset or whatnot. I'm with Mirto. I'm with the players on this. 7 or 8 finals to go. You can't do anything about what happened at the beginning of the season now. You can influence it when you're there next season in 2026, when we're in February, March, April, May. We can put that mindset into play next season. But now the reality is that you can't go back in time. You got 7 or 8 finals left. And you better give it your all. There's no room forever. So that's why I'm Team Mirto in that quote. I'm Team Mirto. I'm backing the Albanian striker, like Verde Nation says, prove them wrong. Hashtag prove them wrong. Right? But no, just like kind of like what Rodo said. He's not criticizing them. He appreciates the mindset or whatnot. But I'm more with the players on this one. You can't go back in time and change things in the past. We can do that in the future, right? But right now, what we have is the present, and there's 7 or 8 finals left with the Open Cup semifinal in play. There's a lot more games left to be played, a lot of high stakes. So we'll see what happens there. Now, looks like we have reached the end of the program. Let me just double check my notes, see if there's anything else there. Folks are asking me what I think is what lineup would I put out against SKC, and we can kind of just go by it real quick. Obviously, you have Brad Stuver in goal, and the defense is really where people are going to be asking, what's going to be happening, because what do I want to see? I don't want to see Djordjevic starting. I do not want to see him starting. It's nothing against him. He himself came out and told us that he thinks he'll be ready in 2 weeks. He hasn't played in 2 months, but he's been training all this time. The heat is also a factor. I wonder if he's having the best training sessions. I'm not there at the St. Davis Performance Center, but I wouldn't start him. I wouldn't start him. I wouldn't take that gamble. What I would do is I would put Johnny G on the left, Guilherme Biru next to Heinzike, and then Miko Dessler on the right. If I need to, I will bring on Djordjevic at the 70th or 80th minute to get his feet wet, or I will trust Antonio Gomez, who has been a consistent figure in the back for Austin FC too. He's the captain for that team, and I trust the lad. I trust him 100%. I know the level is not there, but this is a very special situation where you ain't got no other choice. You either play with the defense that I gave you, or you trust in Antonio Gomez and maybe give Djordjevic a run of minutes. Now in the midfield, of course, you're not going to have Dani Pereira. Elias Sanchez, I wonder if he's going to be back from his back thing that he had going on. Was like a back spasm, something like that. But one guy that I want to see in that midfield is Nico Dubersarski. My word, did he do fantastic at home against San Jose. He was great on defense, wins the ball that lands to Owen, that when he gives the pass to Osman Bukari. That all starts with Nico Dubersarski. I was upset when he came off early in the game, but maybe I understood, whatever, right? I want to see him against Sporting Kansas City away from home. I think he has to be there 100%. Depending on Ilia's situation, Savovic might come into play, but he's also injured as well. I forgot about that. I guess it's just a mess at the midfield as well. So who is Austin FC going to play at the midfield? It's definitely going to be a short roster. You're going to have to see guys come up like Robert Taylor. You're going to have to see guys step up like Nico Dubersarski. Like I said, you're going to have to see guys keep on doing their thing like Owen Wolf. Is John Gallagher going to be at that position where, similar to what he was doing against San Jose, where he was providing support and making a back five, but he was also, running down those wings and providing help in the attack? John Gallagher is great doing that for Austin FC, and we might see some form of that against SKC. In the attack, Diego Rubio is probably going to come into play to replace Mirto Uzuni. You don't have Brandon Vasquez. Is CJ Fodry finally going to get a good run of minutes? A lot of people have been critical of him, but I don't know how you can be critical of him if the lad just doesn't have any minutes. The lad hasn't even played a good amount of time where you can cast full judgment on him. I've liked what I've seen from CJ Fodry before. I'm in the camp where I think he deserves more minutes to just develop more, to see what kind of play style we have from him. And the reality is that I don't think it's effort on the training ground. I think there's just guys ahead of him that are going to get the nod, no matter what kind of effort is being put on, because CJ Fodry is a young lad. He's not a designated player. He's just kind of low on the hierarchy chart when you're talking about minutes, right? And now a situation has presented itself where CJ Fodry could very well finally show what he's made out of, what he can do. There was a moment against, Dallas in the 2-2 that recently happened, where he has a shot late in the game, kind of rolls to the keeper, and fans criticize him for it. Maybe it was the wrong decision. What I appreciated from him is that he took the chance. He took he had the mindset to say, hey, if I'm ever going to affect the game, I'm not going to get a better opportunity than this. So forwards are going to have to shoot. You don't score a goal without shooting, right? And although you had Jader Obrian, I believe, and Mirto Uzuni, who were kind of creating options for him, running down the wings, sometimes you just got to take things in your own hands. And I'm not going to criticize CJ Fodry for taking that chance. I probably would have done the same. The lad needs more minutes to see what we're going to get from him. He's been in the system for a minute. We've seen him play for Austin FC too, but I need to see where he's at with Austin FC. And you can't really do that unless you give him minutes. That's where I'm at on the CJ Fodry topic. CJ Fodry topic, by the way. Irvin Torres withdraws due to injury from the U.S. youth national team, although he was seen training with the first team in some pictures, so I wonder just how severe that injury was. Probably just minimal. Last time, he rejected the call-up as well due to personal reasons, and fans are starting to notice. I saw somebody say, hey, what's up with this Torres guy? Always denying the call-ups. This is going to affect his career. We'll see. I don't know exactly what's happening there. I'm not, I don't have any inside information on that. But last time I did ask Irvin after an Austin FC 2 game, I said, hey, Irvin, just real quick, just why did you reject the call? And by that, I already knew that there was personal reason. And he just confirmed it. I was like, oh, it's because I had something, come up. And oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you for confirming it, right? Straight from the source. But this time, it's an injury, but he's seen training with the first team. So it just kind of raises a little bit of questions there. But possibility of switching to the Mexican national team? I don't think so. I think he's very fond of the national team with the United States, but we'll see. It's a very interesting situation with Irvin Torres there. Very interesting situation. Micah Burton called up to the U20 U.S. Youth National Team. He's doing his thing out there, catching good form with Austin FC too. Just being a contributing factor to Brett Utley's side that plays week in and week out in MLS Next Pro. So, best of luck to all the guys on international duty. We will be watching all of you here from Austin, Texas. Although nothing really much to go off of. Jimmy Farkarlun is the player that saw the most minutes today out of everybody, 46, but they got battered 3-0 against Tunisia. Uzuni didn't play as friendly. Danny Pereira didn't play a single minute against Argentina. You're hoping that he gets minutes against Colombia. High stakes games for everybody. And then you got Svatok, you got Cascante, and who was the other one? Svatok, Cascante, and Mirtu Uzuni that are going to be most likely seeing action in their upcoming World Cup qualifying matches. So that's it from me, everybody. Hopefully, you got some of the some context from the words in Spanish that Rodolfo Borrell had to say. That was my main mission today, to provide some information to those people that would want to know what Rodolfo Borrell is saying in Spanish, but they just do not know the language, and maybe they can't keep up with the subtitles or whatnot. But that's why we always add them, because we know that the fan base has a big chunk of English-speaking fans only, and we always try to, either when it's English, put Spanish subtitles. When it's Spanish, put English subtitles. So follow us on social media. Stay up to date with everything going on with Austin FC. Subscribe to the podcast, and just wait on more stuff coming out. We will be in Minnesota. We will have representation at the U.S. Open Cup semifinals. So very excited for that. If you're out there, let's link up. I will be, hanging out with all the Austin FC fans for sure. We'll be getting content out there, me and Dante, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Have a good night. Have a good day, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Ciao.